Ravi, you
Avatar
pronounce
Meher Baba ki jai.
Avtar.
Uh, yeah. So
Jay.
let's start with the three couplets today. Ashok ji, why don't you start?
Hafiz is three couplets, right?
Yes.
Karthik?
Yes, yes, please.
No, I don't see that on the screen.
Oh, okay. I'm
On my
sorry.
screen, it may
I'm
be.
sorry. No, 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 no. You're right. You're right. Yes.
No, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. Take it as Baba's wish. Okay. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Three of Meher Baba's favorite couplets of Hafiz, a mystical Persian poet. Befitting a fortunate slave, carry out every command of the master without any question of why and what. About what you hear from the master, never say it is wrong because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. I am slave of the master who has released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Hafiz, Av- Avatar, Meher Baba ki Jai. I just wanted to add, I was at Mehrabad, and when I went to the cabin, I was there for some time just meditating in the cabin, and these precious sayings of Hafiz are mentioned there. So I just connected there with that. Thank you, Karthik. Over to you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Jai Baba, to all. And yes, it's been a short Diwali. I'm back in uh, Dubai, but I look forward to continuing our discourses journey like we already started our Bal Matu discussions yesterday. So I don't know whether you are aware of what we're doing, Ravi. We actually are trying to explore Baba's uh, part two of Listen Humanity, which are all these chapters here, right? You're seeing my screen, right? Are you able to see my screen,
Yes,
Ravi?
yes, yes.
Okay,
I,
okay.
I, I can see.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I
good.
can see. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. So I was
it was
saying,
muted.
Karthik,
we are
hang on.
taking, we are,
Jai Baba, Jai Baba. We are doing discourses or listen humanity. I'm a bit confused.
now you are going to get a punch now. I wish I was in the room. I'd have given you a punch. You know this. Yeah, I was telling Ravi more about it. Okay, so
Okay.
what we are doing is discourses. But if you remember, we did a chapter on death. Where did we do it from? We actually feel that a justified extension of the core darshana, the core philosophical material, which are instructional in nature. Divine theme is God speaks. Discourses is more instructional and detailed for helping us lead a better life day to day,
Mm,
right?
mm,
in
mm.
that in that aspect, a good extension of the body of knowledge of discourses is part two of Listen Humanity. If you
Yeah.
remember, Don Stevens was asked about Sahvas, and also he record the discourses that were presented in that, right?
Oh,
So the part two is only discourses, which we feel is a good extension to this body of knowledge. So, what we attempted is only part two, the chapters that are there, we have taken it and put it on the discourses table, and we read each of the chapter and decide which theme it belongs to. Ashok, do you recollect we did this?
Yeah, yeah. That is okay. You're talking about a correlation, and I mean,
Yes, but it is Listen Humanity we are reading, but we are reading it in the context that I just set out now. And
yeah, yeah.
we took the first
Okay.
chapter, which is
Thanks
death
for.
and immortality.
I'm just saying, Karthik. Thanks for waking
Yeah.
me up from my slumber.
Yes. And by the way, slumber is the topic for today. We'll get to that in a minute. So we took death and immortality. Beautiful chapter, just beautiful chapter,
yeah.
right? So we had an
Mhm.
amazing discussion around it. And then at the end of it, we classified it as the first thing to read before getting into reincarnation and karma. So the next time we read Discourses. We'll start with death and immortality as discussed in Listen Humanity, then get to reincarnation and karma, right? So
Yeah.
now, in that same process, we continue and take the next topic, next chapter, the cycle of sleep and waking, right? So that's where we are.
Mhm.
So without further ado, let's talk slumber, to use Ashok's expression.
And many just that um, I have also marked it and kept the bookmark on that chapter, but it's just that you know in last 1 week we had Diwali, so wishing you all happy Diwali and all that. So there's been a lot which has happened in last 1 week.
Sure. So, Ravi, maybe if you're comfortable, we can start with you reading, or I can start with reading. No problem.
I can read.
Okay, great. So, over to you. Chapter 2. We start with that. Yeah, thank you. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So the cycle of sleep and waking. To sleep is to surrender to one of the primary forces of life. Sleep is an inescapable need. There can be no substitute for it, although adjustment within certain degrees to its demands is possible, such as choosing 11 o'clock instead of 10 for retiring. Such adjustments can be made only within well defined limits. There can be no tampering with the strict requirements for sleep over any considerable length of time. For the average man, prolonged abstention from sleep inevitably results in bodily disorder as well as impairments or even derangement of the mind. The mind loses its normal alertness and deteriorates markedly in its ability to concentrate and work out abstruse problems. Further,
If I can pause you there, I think uh, this is also medically and practically observed by us, right? So, medically, one of the first things that happens when you are getting slipping into some sort of depression, or even a problem that is classified very broadly these days as mental disorder, or something that needs clinical help, the first test is how's your quality of sleep? Because sleep, or the absence of it, causes problems, and all that is beautifully explained by Baba through Dawn here. Yeah, go ahead.
further, it loses its ability to cope with the problems presented by everyday life. Sleep, being one of the most significant phenomena in the existence of the individual, must be thoroughly understood if the purpose of life itself is to be fully comprehended. Any attempt to give an explanation of sleep in purely physiological terms will be incomplete and misleading as well. Many people consider sleep to be the inevitable result of exhaustion of the higher nerve centers of the brain. Some attribute the cause of sleep to the accumulation of metabolic and other deterioration products in the brain. Others regard sleep as the product of inhibition of higher brain centers by nerve impulses generated in specialized sleep centers. Still, other authorities regard sleep as the natural condition of the brain, and they consider consciousness to be the result of activating the brain through external stimuli. Sleep, in their opinion, is therefore a relapse into the natural state of the brain, which occurs on withdrawal of these external stimuli.
So I think that's a nice definition, or rather, a statement that describes sleep. So sleep is therefore a relapse into the natural state of the brain, which occurs on withdrawal of these external stimuli. But again, this is the medical or practical understanding. Let's see what Baba has to say.
The essence of all these physiological explanations is that sleep is a byproduct of the physical brain. This is a radically wrong conclusion. A more profound interpretation is required to do justice to the real status of consciousness and its relation to body and soul. I just want to comment.
Sure.
Baba Kalchari used
Hmm?
to be a night watchman for Baba.
Correct.
And he was telling me he never slept
Yes.
for many, many years. He joined around 1954, 56, something like that in Dehradun. And little after that, he became night watchman. And for many, many years, he did not sleep. And he used to tell us, he used to come every year, once or twice actually, sometimes to Chicago to visit USA. And I used to certainly go for many years. And four things he has to observe when he is doing the night watchman, when he was outstairs: don't move, don't sleep, don't talk. What else is there? Fourth one, something else. I forgot.
Okay.
So even if mosquitoes are biting, no move, no talk. Uh,
Wow. Wow.
for years he did that, even if the mosquitoes are doing. So I was connecting in my olden times. I learned in when Lakshmana was being night watchman for Rama, he never slept during the whole time. He was just doing the night watchman. And you know that story, right? Lakshmana never slept. Then I was wondering, how is it possible? How is it possible
Hmm.
for a human being to do that? We like to get to the bed as soon as possible, right, in the evening. That was my state of mind at that time. But when I learned about Bao culture talking about it, he was not kidding. He was being serious about telling what happened. Then I thought must be the grace of the avatar that probably helped him to be awake. And he had to go through so much of struggle because he did a lot of avataric work, Bao culture. Just want
Absolutely.
to, yeah.
If I may,
So
if I may
was
add, Jai Baba,
yeah.
Ravi, it's a beautiful anecdote or a story, and it also exemplifies or shows us the real obedience
Hmm.
and sticking to the diktats given by Baba, and
Yeah.
it's really, and it is tough. It's a lot of sacrifice and lot of
Hmm.
determination is what I
Yeah.
can get. So thank you for the anecdote.
Yeah. Jai Baba. It's all Baba. Yeah.
So quick follow-up question. So in those personal interactions and accounts that Bhavu used to mention, did he get an opportunity in his schedule dictated by Baba to make up for that loss of sleep? Or literally
Never
like
sleep?
Lakshmana, what's that?
No, never. Baba used to,
Wow.
whole night he
Never let
used
him
to be awake.
keep him awake,
And then
yeah,
Baba used to give so much of work.
during the
He
day.
hardly
Wow.
had a couple of hours, maybe less sometimes. Sometimes he had to attend all the other work Baba gave him. He had to do daytime.
Yeah, that's what
And
I was asking. Okay.
the food was kept by Baidal, and the food was so cold, and the tea was also kept, and it was so cold.
Hmm.
And he used to complain to Baba, and Baba never used to do anything about it. Never called Baidal and asked him to be, did anything. So he had to eat that cold food and cold tea for years
Wow.
like that. Yeah, he was telling us all this.
Wow.
And yeah, one interesting thing was, so even he was complaining about who was in charge for Kakabari, I think, in charge for giving all these provisions for the in-house mandali who was staying there. And the soaps also, they used to buy like a, what is that gray, yellow kind of a soap? Not Lifebuoy is red, right? Lifebuoy in olden times. There used to be one more yellowish kind of a soap. I used to remember,
Okay.
but I forgot. Even that soap, they used to cut it into half
Ah.
and give it to to.
Don't we all remember that? I come from a house like that. We used to cut. My dad used to cut Lifebuoy into half, right?
And
And we
and
literally
then he
didn't
had to
see
use,
anything other than Lifebuoy first few years of my childhood. I remember.
yeah,
Uh,
and use that for both bath and to wash the clothes also, you know.
then you're talking about 501.
501, yeah, the yellow thing. Yeah, 501.
I was already
And
thinking, but then you said body, so I did not propose it earlier. So when you said both for clothes and
and
so
and
Ashok, if you're wondering what we're talking about, then you've had a better childhood. Okay.
yeah. And it so happened that this happened in Rockford. Rockford is very close to Chicago and very close to Peoria too. My wife Money had some problem, so I had to, one evening I had to come home to drop Money off, and then next day Sunday morning I went there, and Money uh, gave me. Somebody gave us a nice, beautiful present of, say, box filled with very exotic soaps, packed very scented soaps. And we keep, somebody gives, we don't feel like using it, right? We keep it and give it to somebody else. So she wanted to give something to Bhav Culture because Bhav Culture used to give very special attention to us, to me and Money. He used to give so much of attention. We used to feel very uncomfortable among all these Americans who were all staying there. For every now and then, he used to ask that Raghaval Garu, when I went, Ravi, you know him, right? He used to refer somehow a lot of Andhra Baba lovers. And every
Mhm.
couple of sentences, he used to say, Ravi, you know him, right? He used to say that. And everybody used to look at me, and I used to feel very comfortable. So anyway, Money gave me that box of very exotic scented soaps. So when I went there, I was feeling, why am I giving this to Bao, And it so happened, Bao Culture told about this story, about how Kakabaria used to cut the soap and give. And then talk was finished, and I raised my hand. I went to the stage, and I just cracked a small joke like thing. Kakabaria appeared in my dream, and he asked me to give these soaps to you, Bauji. So I gave. Everybody laughed.
That's hilarious. That's really hilarious. And Ravi and Karthik, I remember cutting the soap. So we all had a
So
similar
similar.
childhood. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Anyway, there's a few beautiful, beautiful,
Yeah.
sweet stories.
Lovely.
Okay, let me continue. Okay.
Yeah, please, please, please.
Throughout evolution, consciousness is developed in and through the mind and expressed through the evolving medium of physical form. But consciousness itself resides in the soul. The body is only the medium through which consciousness expresses itself. It's very interesting. Baba mentioning that consciousness resides in the soul.
Yeah, I mean, it's the core of his message, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he's
and
bringing that in the context of body and sleep. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. the unconscious part of the God. Conscious, our consciousness is in the unconscious part of the soul. Through ages, a single life impulse, individualized soul, gradually becomes more conscious as it expresses itself through a myriad of forms. The consciousness thus developed is the passion of the mind, and it does not vanish with the disappearance of the physical vehicle. The physical form also evolves as consciousness unfolds. Bodily forms emerge one after another in continuous and ascending order so that the total consciousness might develop progressively through a fitting progression of form vehicles. Consciousness is not a coincidental product of physiological processes, but the very reason of the existence of all forms. Hey, let's pay some attention to this paragraph. Karthik or
Yeah, actually, you can reread it.
mm,
So the last line is very important, and for us, I think we it's all committed to memory. I hope, in the sense that what. So if you look back and somebody talks to you about science and Baba, this is the core of the message that we need to respond with, right? So
mm,
what is Darwin saying? Darwin saying evolution of form happened due to the evolution of form happened due to evolution, which is driven by efficiency, driven by
mm,
competition to survive, right?
mm,
Survival of the fittest. That is the goal due to which evolution was motivated, right? What is the
mm, mm.
motivation for evolution? And Baba destroys that. Like Baba says specifically, he says Darwin was on the right track, but he was not completely there. And what is the difference? The difference is the form is the consciousness is what is evolving. Nothing to do with the form.
Ah, yeah.
Nothing. So it's beautiful. So the dependent variable is the form. The independent variable is consciousness. As consciousness
Yeah,
evolves,
Baba.
it needs superior and superior forms. Yeah, Kama, go ahead.
I think that quote Baba never said about Darwin. I said it. Baba never talked about Darwin.
Oh,
That was
really?
my that was my insight when I was reading God Speaks in New York. After
Uh-huh.
reading about creation, reincarnation, involution, that because we never knew the word called involution. So I
Hmm.
was always a Darwin's fan. So I always
Yes.
used to mention this that Darwin's theory of evolution of form should be restated as evolution of consciousness that adopts different forms. So that he was on the right track except this part. So, but Baba never talked about Darwin, just as a correction. Jai Baba.
Oh my God, you had a big impact, man. I remember that so well from your commentary and so many discussions on this topic. And like you, I have two, three things that are vividly stuck in my mind, right? As a kid and as a student, I loved the concept of evolution, right? I
Actually,
loved as a management student, I loved the concept of the pyramid, what is that? The hierarchy of needs, Maslow. So these are things that actually connect very well to spirituality, and we have discussed this ad nauseum. And these are so well committed that I almost assumed Baba also talked about it. So thanks for pointing it out.
no,
Yeah, Ravi.
Kama, Baba did mention about Darwin. I don't remember exactly where I read it, but Baba mentioned that he talked about evolution by what word did he use? Um, where did I read? I don't remember now, but I did read it. But he mentioned something like this in my own words. It's by chance he coined the word evolution, something like that.
Oh, okay. I think that's
Yeah, he did
something to
mention.
look up and research to see what
Yeah,
what he
Meher
had to
Baba and
say on this.
Darwin. Yeah, Meher
Yes,
Baba
yes.
and
Yeah, Karthik, you're right. This is an area of research, deep research.
Yeah. No, deep research nahi chahiye. This is final. Kuch research nahi hai. The research is only how much Darwin knew and how much he didn't. We know he
अच्छा अच्छा
didn't.
अच्छा this
Okay, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah,
Meher
yeah.
Baba explanation of evolution differs from Charles' theory. In Baba believed the driving force of the evolution was God's desire to know himself.
Okay.
Uh, Baba believed that the evidence of intelligence in living cells was a reflection of God's divine urge, which moves life towards higher forms of consciousness. Baba taught that the goal of beings was to awaken to their own divinity and to realize the oneness of God. No, I don't see here anyway.
Yeah, so it's more commentary. Anyway, we'll do that research. We can come back and
Yeah.
find
Ravi,
share
Ravi,
our finding.
if I may ask from where can you give the reference of what you're reading?
Oh, this is just I googled it, and this
अच्छा
AI
अच्छा अच्छा ठीक ठीक है
created
ठीक
this Meher
ठीक है
Baba, and the words are Meher Baba Darwin theory.
ओके ओके
Yeah. Let me read it again.
Oh,
So
please.
if I understand consciousness from the God speaks, so consciousness and sanskaras are created simultaneously. This consciousness of the drop soul is connected with the unconscious part of the God. So the consciousness is now focused on the sanskaras, and finally, when the perfect master wipes out the sanskaras, when the person experiences nirvikalpa samadhi, that I am God state, the consciousness is gone, the sanskaras are all gone, I is gone, or I is replaced by the universal I. All this thing happens. Consciousness becomes union with the unconsciousness, becomes union with the consciousness. So this consciousness is the one which is evolving through the forms, and it is concentrated in the impressions, whatever it may be, gross, subtle, or mental. Okay. So having said
Jai
that,
Baba,
hmm,
impressions are there for consciousness to evolve. So the sanskaras or impressions keep evolving, taking different forms, higher and higher kingdoms, so that the rudimentary consciousness at the who am I Vim state becomes full and complete in the human form. And sanskaras is the driving force, right? And then when you reach the human form, consciousness and full and complete, that we can assume that it is super consciousness, but is covered by this layer of evolutionary sanskaras, which is winding sanskaras. And then in the human form, during reincarnation, we are spending sanskaras. And then once you enter the involution planes, it starts unwinding. So consciousness becomes full and complete in the human form, which is basically super consciousness. That is my understanding. Jai Baba.
yeah, that's what I said. Nothing any different. But actually, consciousness is also in connected with the. There's nothing. There's see in the beyond state of
So
God.
you were talking about unconsciousness.
What consciousness?
You were mentioning unconsciousness becomes full or unites with infinite consciousness or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about unconsciousness. You're conscious. I'm conscious of you, right? You're conscious of. We're all conscious now. What is that consciousness? That is different from unconsciousness. That may be connected with the unconsciousness, but that consciousness is we are conscious. We are conscious that we are not God. I'm conscious I am Ravi. I'm conscious of a man because that my consciousness is focused on the sanskaras. That consciousness I'm talking about. Okay. maybe we are talking about the same thing. Maybe how I use the words, you use the words, and your understanding, my understanding may be different. But let us try to understand what is said in this paragraph. The consciousness thus developed is the possession of the mind, and it does not vanish with the disappearance of the physical vehicle. That we know, when the physical body dies, consciousness does not disappear. The physical form also evolves as the consciousness unfolds. That is, he's talking about evolution, right?
Yeah.
Bodily forms emerge one after the other in continuous and ascending order, so that the total consciousness might develop progressively through the fitting progression of form vehicles. Consciousness is not a coincidental product of physiological processes, but the very reason for the existence of all forms. I think Baba is talking about evolution here.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Consciousness is the standard by which the distinctions between sleep and waking should be understood. In the wakefulness, the mind becomes conscious and expresses itself through the body. We are clear on that? In sleep, the mind relapses into a quiescent state of the soul without outer expression. Physiologically, the states of sleeping and waking may be described as the retarding and accelerating of the higher brain centers, but they are more significantly defined as the submerging and emerging of consciousness. Any question on that? See, when
So
we are
I have a question. So the mind relapses into quiescent. What is quiescent? Like, can I just check that, please?
See, there are two states, right? Let's talk about two states. Forget about for our understanding. Let's forget about dream state, awake and deep sleep. When you're awake, what happens is your consciousness is active. Why is it active? Is because your sanskaras are active. Okay. In the deep sleep, all the sanskaras are lying down, sleeping. So there's no activity of the consciousness. So consciousness is also inactive. That is where we all experience, as Baba said, Paratpara Parabrahma state, in the deep sleep state, where you are not conscious of your body, mind, or anything else. That's what he meant here.
Right.
Okay. Shall I read it again for our understanding?
I think that's a good idea.
Vaibhav, I have a question.
Yeah.
If consciousness is dormant during the deep sleep state, what is alive? What is it that is, that is in deep sleep state? If consciousness is dormant, is it awareness? So
awareness is consciousness.
Yes, I think the consciousness.
Awareness is beyond consciousness, actually, according to Nisargadatta Maharaj.
Yeah, according to Baba, he has kind of he has also not specifically defined consciousness. Okay, I'm saying Baba defined. But I would say that if you look at Baba's vocabulary, consciousness is to be almost taken synonymously with awareness. But I see what you mean when you're saying awareness is a broader term. But let's park that for a minute. Your question is still provocative. Your question is still valid and provocative, like I said. So what is and what isn't when you are in deep sleep? That's the question, right? So I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Nothing happens to you. Your body is at rest. Your mind is not active. Your energy is going on. Your subtle body energy is going on because the heart rate, all the digestion, all the other activities of the organs are going on. That's because the subtle energy is active. That's about it.
And I would also say that it's some sort of. So let's look back at the other things that we know, which are similar to sleep, right? So if you look at what happens in Ice Age, the Mahapralaya, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I like to use the word which suspended animation, right? So we are animate objects, we are capable of movement, we are capable of life, but it just gets suspended temporarily. So even the sanskaras get suspended temporarily. The bodily functions happen normally, but without consciousness slash awareness being the one in control. So it's in autopilot for that period of deep sleep. That's the way I would understand it. But others, please jump in.
What do you mean by auto control? What do you mean auto control?
Autopilot, and in the sense that there is no there's no viveka, there is no application of mind, there is no what should I say? The consciousness of the soul is not operating to uh, intervene. It's just going on, right? So when digestion is going on in deep sleep,
Consciousness is at rest.
what?
Consciousness is active only when your sanskaras are active.
Yes. So, but why is the body active? The body is alive. Breathing
Your
is going on.
your physical body is active.
So what
Your
happens?
subtle body, your
Jai Baba,
subtle body.
if I
Yeah,
may,
go ahead.
if I may just
Please.
set some direction, what I understood, but there are all intellectuals on this group. See, there are two parts of the body. One is physiological, that means the breathing, eating, whatever, the physical part of the body, and consciousness. And there are two separate, let's say, segments of the body. So when you are sleeping, you're still breathing. You're still, you know, maybe dreaming or whatever, but you are still breathing. What I'm trying to say is that if you are breathing, your heart is functioning, your lungs are functioning. So the physiological part, if that is the correct medical term, is operating even when you are in sleep.
Yeah.
And in one of the later chapters of Lesson in Humanity, they have also defined consciousness and other things. But
you're not conscious of it. You're not conscious of it.
you're not conscious of it. You are oblivious. That is one thing. But your physical body is still functioning, is what I am trying to say. If I'm correctly communicated what I wanted to say. Is am I making sense to some
No. Can you come out again?
I said there are two parts to the body. One is physiological or the functioning of the various organs,
Yes.
and other is consciousness of the soul or
No, that is the subtle part of it, right?
yes, and
The
also
mind and
consciousness
the consciousness is a subtle
or
part of it.
intellect or your mind, or you may be when you're asleep, you're oblivious of the happenings around you of the gross world, if I can just put it that way.
Yeah, that's because your mind is not active.
Okay.
That's because mind is nothing but a receptacle of all the sanskaras. All the sanskaras are lying down, sleeping. Night, good night.
Yes.
No more activity. When they are sleeping, your consciousness is not active. Only your physiological organs are functioning, whatever they are functioning. Digestion,
Is that what I
heartbeat,
want to?
breathing, they're all functioning. Yes.
That is exactly what I was trying to
Yeah.
stress upon.
That we talked
Right.
about it.
And second thing is that in on page 3 of God Speaks, yeah, there's mention about gross sphere. That is hearing, smelling, eating, sleeping, clearing the bowels, and urinating. So some here, of course, when you're sleeping, But the other things like smelling, eating, we are not conscious of it, or we're not awake, physically awake. Is what I want to say. If that makes it easier to understand, or
Yeah, we are thinking, and we don't have any question on that, Ashok. We don't have question on that.
yeah, okay. And
Okay. We're trying to understand this paragraph.
just give me a minute, just half a minute more. So,
Okay, sure.
aware is having knowledge or realization or awareness. You're talking about awareness, consciousness. These are all similar terms. So, aware is having knowledge or realization. So, it can be interpreted and in various ways, and of course, to the context of what you are speaking.
Yeah.
Please
Jai
carry
Baba,
on.
when
Jai
you are
Baba.
in when you are in Jai Baba, when you are in nirvana, we have understood from God Speaks and Discourses that a self-realized person doesn't sleep like an ordinary being. He is completely conscious during the sound sleep state also. He's just resting the body. There is nothing like sound sleep state because sanskaras have become zero. They are only taking rest. And we know many examples of Baba when he was resting and snoring and Mani was reading. So the idea here is, the question here is, for ordinary human beings, when we are in deep sleep state, consciousness is in abeyance. Basically, it's not disappeared, it's in abeyance, as rightly said.
Yeah.
And the point is also in deep sleep, as Baba said, that the Atma's consciousness unites with the Paramatma, and that is why we experience the bliss state, but we are unconscious of it. That is the kind of awareness I was talking about.
Yeah.
That consciousness, when we are talking about, has two parts. One is the super consciousness, where sanskaras is equal to zero, and the ordinary human consciousness, depending on whether you are on the gross plane, subtle plane, or mental plane. Then you have gross consciousness, subtle consciousness, or mental consciousness, which is what you directly deal with those bodies. And they are related to the specific sanskaras, the gross, subtle, mental sanskaras. Hey, Baba.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Let me continue. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, we can also rotate the reading, Ravi, if you're.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I see Ashish after a long time. You want to read, Ashish? Are you in a
Yeah.
position or?
Yes, yes, I can read.
Yeah. Jai Baba. In order to answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much, Ravi.
In order to answer the basic question of why consciousness should oscillate between the quiescent state of sleep and the active state of wakefulness, one must attack the problem of the primary origin of consciousness. Before the beginning of all beginnings, the infinite ocean of God was completely self forgetful. The utter and unrelieved oblivion of the self forgetful infinite ocean of God in the beyond state was broken in order that God should consciously know his own fullness of divinity. It was for this sole purpose that consciousness proceeded to evolve. Consciousness itself was latent in the beyond state of God. Also latent in this same beyond state of God
Yeah.
was the original whim in bracket lahar to become conscious. It was this original whim which brought latent consciousness into manifestation in bracket form for the first time.
Actually, it's latent.
Yeah.
Latent. It's important because it draws the meaning as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Slowly and tediously, consciousness approaches its apex in the human form, which is the goal of the evolutionary process, and thereby an individual mind gradually differentiates itself from the sea of oblivion. However, the conscious individual still does not comprehend the truth of the real self. On the contrary, there is produced in man a false sense of limitation and frustration. The full consciousness that is laboriously produced in the evolutionary process and that takes the place of utter forgetfulness remains finite because it is replete with countless countless impressions in brackets sanskara of fulfilled and unfulfilled desires that have been acquired while inhabiting the many finite bodies. Originally, it was the lahar that caused consciousness to manifest. In everyday life, it is the impressions, in brackets sanskaras, that cause latent consciousness in the sleep state to manifest itself as active consciousness in the awake state. Although the sea of oblivion through the development of consciousness, it has been exchanged for growing nightmare of ever increasing futility. Forgetfulness has been displaced by remembrance, but it is a remembrance charged with limitation, helplessness, and binding desires. The full but finite human consciousness struggles to find self expression and self gratification, but even these efforts are subject to sanskaric compulsions. They prevent man from recapturing the original truth of his being and subject him to increasing limitation and helplessness. He is like spider caught in a web of his own making. As a means of respite, consciousness seeks the oblivion of deep sleep, where it again surrenders itself temporarily to the sea of self-forgetfulness, the original beyond state of God. In sound sleep, consciousness becomes latent for the time being until the burden of unspent sanskaras forces it to manifest again in the awake state. In his desperate attempts during wakefulness to overcome his feelings of helplessness and boredom, man may attempt to escape from himself through the exciting emotions of lust or anger. Although drowning oneself in lust or anger may seem to promise escape, the satisfaction achieved is only temporary. Inevitably, a strong counter sense of remorse or depression is induced that is worse than the original sense of frustration. On the collective level, wars provide the exciting avenue of escape that subsequently reacts to numb the spirit of man with an overwhelming sense of burden. Nature has striven, nature has
No,
striven to evolve.
what's the point? That's me. I didn't understand how wars come in suddenly. So read on the collective level, wars provide the exciting avenue of escape that subsequently reacts to numb the spirit of man with an overwhelming sense of burden. So what's being said here? Anybody?
I think what Baba is saying is out of the frustration and boredom with the typical life and the force of samskaras, people escape and uh, they bring lust or anger into their life to get numb, to really don't feel it. And then it seems that he says also war is brings that sense of numbness
I think yeah.
for
So
people.
the way I agree with you. The interpretation seems to be that at an individual level, uh, we operate on the lines of using lust and anger as a temporary reprieve. And at the collective level, expression of that lust and anger is also through war, which is very, very interesting. I mean,
So,
So
Why
yeah,
does Baba says this part I actually missed? Thank you for bringing it up. Why does he say on the collective level words provide? I thought he was still talking on an individual basis. Why does he say
yeah.
on the collective level?
So
There is
let's
probably
say
collective karma, country karma,
exactly,
community karma. So war is
exactly.
also sometimes a way to neutralize sanskaras. So the collective, karma of probably going through war is something that works on individual sanskaras or the country sanskaras or whatever you may call it. That's my
Societal
understanding. Jay
sanskar.
Baba.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Jay Baba, also, war is a extreme manifestation of lag, or let's say an
That's
extreme.
exactly what he's saying. That's exactly what he's saying. Yeah.
I mean, since you asked for what it,
Oh,
oh,
I didn't get it.
with
Extreme
with
manifestation of what?
of extreme
You
manifestation
have
of our lust, anger, and greed. Because when you get into war,
Uh-huh.
let's say World War I, World War II, or any other wars, there was. I mean, there are many historical figures. Let's take the example of Hitler. He had an extreme manifestation to kill a particular community. So it's and when your individual sanskaras of lust, anger, and greed come into a collective, as karma said by karma, that it's a collective karma. When a group of individuals or a group of people in the community join together with an extreme manifestation of these vikars, or the ego, that's of lust, anger, and greed, that's when wars precipitate. It's also mentioned somewhere else. I don't remember now, but it is mentioned either in discourses or somewhere else. It is mentioned. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it seems that uh, this particular sanskaras, past sanskaras or past karma of lust and anger that leads one to participate at the collective level, it is the special uh, lust, is a special loss, like what you said, Hitler, his love for German people to that level. Okay, so that is his loss, and it seems that people who have that kind of lost, extreme nationalists or extreme, you know, uh, they get together and participate at the collective level, which is war. Not everybody can go to the war. I can't go to the war,
Yes.
like that.
And also the word lust here is as you rightly said, it's an extreme manifestation of the lust for power as well. And in greed also, why I said greed is that because in war people also steal the enemy's gold, or resources, or financial resources. They break open the walls. So there is a lot of things which happen in war, which are of course not very uh, constructive. They are destructive, and that's because of the extreme manifestation uh, of the individual egos into a collective level.
Right,
Jai.
Jay Baba. An example of collective karma that comes to my mind is the Holocaust of the Jewish community. How to interpret it is different. I can't interpret that, but that seems to me an example of this whole community having to go through that experience. Jay Baba.
Thank you. Brilliant, brilliant, Kama. Thanks.
let's continue.
Yeah. Yeah. Nature has striven to evolve consciousness through long ages of painful struggle. It is great tragedy that when consciousness faces an acute need to free itself from entanglement, it should regress instead by resorting to the deadening of sensibility. This expedient is disastrous because it involves a conscious attempt to undo the achievements of natural evolution. None of man's walking attempts to overcome his feeling of intolerable weariness is wholly acceptable to the soul. All are dissatisfying in the long run. Hence, man seeks rest and refreshment by withdrawing temporarily into the oblivion of deep sleep. This psychological necessity for sleep cannot be avoided. Just as the physical body requires alternating periods of activity and rest, so the mind also needs such periods. Sleep is the means by which the mind withdraws temporarily from the pressure exerted by its age old load of impressions and desires. Through sleep, the mind refreshes itself temporarily for further participation in the game of becoming self conscious. If the self were completely aware of its true God nature during waking consciousness, need to withdraw into the self forgetfulness of sleep. Spontaneous joy will be an eternal wellspring of divine refreshment. When man seeks freedom from the ennui of the waking stage by losing consciousness in the sleep state, no slightest destruction of consciousness occurs. Deep sleep is an inward withdrawal of consciousness into a condition of temporary oblivion. In this state, the mind is completely quiescent. It does not experience the helplessness of finite self consciousness, nor is it aware of the true self as the illimitable truth. Both the finite illusory world and the real infinite stage are forgotten as consciousness sinks into the sea of oblivion. In the deep sleep, consciousness exists merely as a latent, possibly which must again be aroused to activity.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention here, and that is, for poor people who are fed up with, the condition of their life or society or whatever, and they choose this way of, uh, you know, sleep, sleeping for self forgetfulness and what's happening around them. And Baba says it's temporary, yes, but also this takes away the time where their sanskaras could be consumed. And so when there's, of course, we know that when sanskaras, the latent one, they are consumed, we get closer, and stuff like that. And of course, with us and during this Baba's manifestation, having a master like him, uh, giving us guidance and instruction as to what to do and what not to do, helps us a lot compared to the ordinary people that they resist to come to the master. Yeah.
Sleep stands in the same relationship to consciousness as death does to life. Death is not the annihilation of life, but it transference to another state of being. In the same way, sleep is not the annihilation of consciousness, but its withdrawal into state of abeyance. Whether latent as unconsciousness or manifested as a consciousness is always there. The matter may summarize as follows. After going to sleep, when man ordinarily enters the ordinary dream state, A. He has no consciousness of the body. B. The link with the physical body remains intact. C. Pain and pleasure are experienced for a short period. D. The man wakes up in the same physical body. After physical death, the man also enters the dream state. And subtopic A. He has no consciousness of the body. B. The link with that particular physical body is snapped for good. C. Because the link with the gross no longer exists, he experienced pain or pleasure, in bracket the states of heaven and hell, for more intensely, where for long or short period. D. He wakes up in the gross in another physical body. The passage from sleep to wakefulness consists in the passage from A, unconsciousness, to B, subconsciousness, and finally to C, full consciousness. Normally, for the ordinary man, this consists of A, sound sleep, unconsciousness, B, dreams, subconsciousness of duality, C, rose from sleep is equal to full consciousness of duality. When a man almost loses consciousness, as in high fever, he is subconscious, as in the dream state. But if he is rendered unconscious through drugs such as chloroform, he is unconscious, as in the sound sleep state. Unconsciousness always involves temporary return to the original, beyond state of God, regardless of the cause, whether it is sound sleep, drugs, or a physical accident. Although the subject of the
I
past,
have a question, just and also Ashish, if you can read a little bit slower, please. These are
yeah,
yeah, just a little bit slower. So here, okay, where did he talk about his subconscious as in the dream state? But if it's rendered unto drug, such as chloroform, he's unconscious as in the sound sleep, and unconsciousness always involves temporary. So here, when the man who used drugs and felt to become unconscious, okay, he became temporarily unconscious. His subconscious, Baba says, it's in dream state, right? This is subconscious. But it says if he's rendered unconscious through drugs such as, I'm sorry, he's, hold on, I have to wrap around my question. Basically, what I want to ask is that, no, yeah, roll it down, please. Roll it down. I was asking how. Here, the last paragraph. The question is, it says, Baba says unconsciousness always involves temporary return to the original beyond state of God, regardless of the cause. Okay, so my question is, the people who experience sound sleep, okay, which is Baba says is equal to unconsciousness, and in that you actually experience the beyond state. He says is that, but I don't think anybody can experience the beyond the state of God in their sound sleep state. That's the whole thing. We cannot be aware of it. But I don't know why, Baba, here it says unconsciousness always involves temporary return to the original beyond state of God, regardless of the cause, whether it be a sound sleep, drugs, or physical accident. I mean, what's the purpose of him saying here? We already know that. Right? I was just thought maybe there's something in it.
See, we are conscious because we experience this world through this body and through the subtle part of ourself is the mind. Mind is the one we always use, which also includes the intellect. Mind, the thoughts, what we have, the emotions we feel, the intellect we use to figure out things, understand. This is all mind. That's the only tool we have. So when you are asleep, that mind is not there. And mind is the one which obstructs you from experiencing God. And all the sanskaras are stored in the mind. So The mind, including the sanskaras, are the obstruction of the state, your real state, that obstructing you from experiencing it. So when you are asleep, all the sanskaras are lying down. You are not conscious of it, and you are experiencing the God state.
No, we are not experiencing the God state. That's the whole thing.
You
We
don't know
are
that. You
not.
don't, because you're
No,
trying
no,
to tell
Baba
me
talks
with your
about it.
mind.
No, no. Baba talks about it, not even here, a lot of places. That is the nature of sound sleep state. That
No, here
you
Baba
go
is
back
saying,
to the beyond state of God, but you're not aware of it. You don't experience it. That's the whole thing. The
yeah, we
only
are not
person who could
consciously.
be,
No. There's one
no,
thing,
no,
Mahu, is
unconsciously or consciously, you don't, I mean, even if you do unconsciously, you don't remember it. Why? Because you don't experience it. So that doesn't count.
no,
The whole thing is
no.
for us to
Listen to me.
be
Listen to me.
experiencing it, and that happens in an awake state.
Yeah.
That's a God, that's a man God.
See, only tool you have is the mind. You're only talking with your mind right now. If I ask you a question, you're answering only with the mind. You think you are the mind. You are different from your mind. You think you are the body. That is the limitation we have. I think I am separate from God. I am this mind. I am this body. That is our universal problem. I am this I consciousness. That is one which is obstructing us from experiencing the God state. Even though you are experiencing it, you are not aware of it. But when you wake up, you think you had a deep sleep and you don't remember what you experienced, because we only see with the mind. The mind tells you, oh, you slept at 10:30 and then you woke up at 6 o'clock. That's what it tells you. You had a very comfortable sleep. That's why you feel relaxed. From the experience of being relaxed, you say, yeah, I had a deep sleep. I didn't even know my body. I didn't even awake even a single time. That's what you say. That is you're saying with the mind. Yeah, Bob.
But what are you trying to say, Ravi? I understand that. Well, in actually this part, Baba doesn't talk much about mind. He talks about samskaras as being, we get obstructed by the force of samskaras. He put us to sleep, we wake up, like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we already know that. I was just, anyway, so I guess we talked about
See,
it quite a
you're
bit.
saying that
We
you're
should
not
move on.
experiencing this beyond state of God, but Baba is saying that you are. I don't know how to say this, but you are unconsciously experiencing the beyond state of God in your sound sleep. You were not experiencing through your mind. That is the.
He even doesn't say you unconsciously experiencing beyond the state of God. He does
But what
not
did we read
use
here?
that word. He says you return, you temporarily return to that,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Okay, you
Yeah,
when
use
you
that
that
wake
word.
up. Hmm.
Yeah, that's it. Temporarily return to your original beyond state of God. Okay, you use that word. Okay, that's fine.
No, Baba
But you
used
don't
that.
experience that because the moment you are awake, you are in control of your sanskaras. That's why.
Yeah, of course.
That's
Yes.
why. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So maybe we can move on.
yes.
Yeah. So, although the subject of the path and its disciplines is considered in detail later, it is of interest to note in this connection that for those on the path, the three states are A. Beyond state of God is equal to unconsciousness. B. Experience on the path is equal to real subconsciousness of duality. See, rose from all illusion of duality is same as real full consciousness of God or self. Mind seeks the absence of its consciousness in deep sleep, but it cannot continue indefinitely to accept the self refutation. This negative achievement is not an adequate substitute for the final purpose for which consciousness came into existence, that is, for the soul to become fully conscious of itself as the infinite truth. Though man attempts to sleep to escape the burden that consciousness imposes upon him, he is involuntarily drawn back to his waking state by the impressions gathered in the achieving of the very consciousness from which he sought escape. The old bonds of desire, both fulfilled and unfulfilled, bind him to the world of illusion and propel him again into the maelstrom of finite life. Although it is only temporary, sleep does give psychological reinvigoration to the mind. If there were not some kind of restoration of psychic vitality during sleep, there would be no particular benefit to this oblivion. In spite of the apparent respite, consciousness would remain exactly as it had been at the time of its withdrawal into sleep, and no special gain will be achieved. It will be merely a fruitless interval in the long chain of automatic responses to environment. Sleep days confer positive benefit due to the fact that the separate I consciousness is in complete abeyance during deep sleep. The individual soul is in actual union with the infinite self. When sleep is dreamless, the individual soul is resting in the undisturbed tranquility of the most original beyond state of God. But inasmuch as sleep is submergence of consciousness into oblivion, it does not bestow upon the soul the conscious realization of the truth that the soul will eventually experience when consciousness is freed of all impressions, good as well as bad. Even this unconscious contact with infinity, the abode of all bliss and power, gives to the mind a new tune and vigor. When consciousness returns to waking functioning, it manifests a renewed faith that at some time, in some manner, a final solution to life's complexities will be found. Although the most important work of consciousness is always done during the waking state, dreams also play their part in helping consciousness through the maze of problems which beset it. As a rule, consciousness passes through the dream state during the transition from waking to sleep and while returning from sleep to waking. The dream state serves as a bridge between sleep and waking, but it is not an inevitable phase. The mind may swing between quiescence and waking without subconsciously passing through the dream phase. In the dream state, consciousness is not completely dormant as in sleep, nor is it fully active as in waking. The dream state is midway between these two phases, and it marks a transition from latent, latent and consciousness to active consciousness. The unique virtue of the ordinary dream state is that experiences in it are relatively free from the act of willing as well as from the rigid social demands which prevail in conscious life. Despite the seeming lawlessness of the dream state, it is nevertheless subject to the accumulated mental and emotional impressions, sanskaras, which function as inexorably in the dream state as in the waking. Many inclinations and desires which cannot find fulfillment in the waking life seek and find gratification in the self-created subjective world of dreams.
I can
Likewise,
pause you here,
yeah,
Ashish.
yeah,
Do everybody agree with what is being described on the dream state? I think beautiful uh, description of the state and how there is no will. There is no will means basically application of mind to do something over something else, right? So that's not there. And also, he says beautifully, apparent lawlessness. I'm sure we have wondered when we get up and sometimes we remember the dream. We wonder about all these things, right? So these things that we have experienced in the dream. So I just wanted to underline that, right? Any comments? We do things that don't lose nature uh, being subject to them in our dream state, right? Uh, they're also they're not inactive, right? Things like speed of travel, things like aging, things like uh, aging, right? These don't. You may go through 4 or 5 year period in a 20-minute dream. Do you agree with me? We all experience this. I'm sure we have, right? But in that, before you get out, the experience makes you feel like you've been through 5 years. But when you look at it, it's been a 20-minute day, right? So that's the lawlessness that's being described here. It's not application of formal societal law. It's basically the divine laws, right? I hope the comment is not out of place, and I hope everybody sees what I'm saying.
your voice was breaking for me in between.
Yeah, you were breaking. I didn't completely get what you said. I have to be honest. Can you
Okay.
please
I don't know.
repair?
Oh
Can you
oh my
please
God. I'm
repeat?
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll just repeat. I said the beauty of what is being described here. I'm sure all of us have experienced at one time or the other through a dream
Mhm.
state. When you say lawlessness here, Baba is referring to the non-application of the divine laws. So you have seen in a 20-minute dream, for example, 20-minute physical time, human time, you might have actually aged 10 years and seen experiences of 10 years in that dream. When in the dream state, you actually think it's 10 years that have passed. But when you get up and look at your watch, it's just 20 minutes, right? You experience pain, you experience pleasure without actually affecting the body, right? So there is a apparent suspension of the divine laws in the dream space. That's what Baba is giving the clarity about, and I'm sure we have experienced it. I'm drawing attention to think about this and understand this better. That's all.
Yeah, we really didn't know enough about dream state. Actually, most people they don't even pay attention to it.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
the correlation between dream and subtle is so real. And the big moment for me is the idea of time within dream. The time that you experience in the dream state is not the time that you experience in the real waking world, because it's actually a different idea of time. It's like after death, the soul, consciousness of the soul experience does not have the idea of time. Time is only in this world.
That's true. I think dream state perhaps is related to a semi-subtle body, you know. So it's not even connected to our gross
So
body.
subtle, yeah, correct.
Subtle body. So it's just that. And as you said, in there, time does not exist. Time and space does
Exactly,
not exist.
exactly. So you can try. So if you remember some dreams, you would have traveled such a big journey. You drive your car so long, and then you get up and look at the watch. It's just been 10 minutes, right?
If you
But
watch,
when
if you if you watch Marvel movies, Marvel, sorry, Mr.
Mhm.
Topic is this one. They have multi-universe concept, right? Multi-universe concept.
Multiverse.
Multiverse. So in that movie, what
Hmm.
it's shown, if the one person, like same soul, might be at four different planets, four different worlds, and they are connected with each other. And sometimes they see those visions in the dreams. That's what the movie's concept. I'm just telling.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know how much true is that one, but that was just part of that movie, those Marvel's movies.
It's only Baba never talks about simultaneous, appearance in. Baba talks about multiverses, or rather, he doesn't use the word multiverse, but he says multiple universes. Okay, so
Yeah.
but nowhere does the consciousness and the appearance or role of the soul, individual soul, is like the word individual, only at one place at one time. So yes, it's totally in the lighter vein, like you said, and what you have seen in a movie, let it remain that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's go ahead.
Okay. Likewise, many fears and conflicts buried, buried in the subconscious mind inflict upon the dreamer a diversity of suffering which the conscious mind will seek to avoid. Thus, dreamland also invites the experiencing of the opposites. The unique characteristic of dream experiences is that they afford an opportunity to work out a number of sanskaric impressions without creating any new physical bondage. Many dreams have the same force and directive value that inhere in experiences of the waking stage, but these latter are always accompanied by simultaneous creation of new emotional and mental impressions, sanskaras, that prove to be just as binding as the age-old impressions that limit man's consciousness. Dream experiences, however, result in no such creation of further bindings. Another interesting aspect of ordinary dreams is that, regardless of what the dream entails, it has no direct effect on any mind other any mind other than the dreamer. This is
Beautiful,
quite
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is quite contrary. This is quite contrary to experiences in the conscious waking state. These invariably involve and affect many other souls as well, thus complicating many life patterns. The activity of consciousness in the waking state creates a bondage of karmic liabilities and assets from which dream experiences are exempt. The
So if
dream
I
world.
can pause you again, if I can pause you again here. So it's such an important distinction. I don't know whether we think about it enough. In a dream, there is no impact on another soul. Whereas you may experience that you're impacting the other soul. You may give a hug to your wife. You may think of your children. You may dream about success and how you are seen in the world. So, whatever dreams one experiences, but that's only in your head, right? It's only in your soul, and there's no impact to anybody else, right?
No, it's
So,
not in the soul. It's our subconscious. It's at
yes,
subconscious
yes, yeah, yeah.
level.
No, I
Yeah.
agreed. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
Thank you
know
for that.
what you're saying. Sure.
Yes, yes, yes. But thanks for clarifying that. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ashish.
Yeah. The dream world is a type of psychic experimental laboratory, insulated from the demands of physical life and thus possessing some advantage over the waking state. But because it does not give play to the directive faculty of the will and isolates the individual soul from other souls, it also suffers severe handicaps from which the waking life is free. In spite of the periodic release and refreshment that deep sleep supplies, the mind continues to be dissatisfied, driven by need to escape from the burden that finite consciousness imposes upon him. Man associates himself with like minded individuals by merging himself that has similar problems. He hopes to fortify himself against his growing sense of dissatisfaction. But this hope is ill founded. He finds no more redemption by identifying himself with the false we than by identifying with the false I. The increased strength of the group is nullified by increased expectations. Instead of finding his powerlessness mitigated, the individual finds that it is merely shared by many others. His sense of helplessness is accentuated through participation in the group consciousness, for he shares these collective feelings of helplessness as his own. Although occasionally a means may be found to eliminate some one worry in life, the final solution to recurring problems remains to be found. Suppose, for example, that a man is extremely miserable because others in his office seems to be given better treatment than he. Then suppose he suddenly relieved of all his worries by inducing himself in a studied indifference to his surroundings. This may give him a temporary feeling of release from his problems, but since his troubles are really caused by lack of understanding of himself and environment, his cultivated indifference really leaves the situation completely unchanged. Sooner or later, when his forced indifference cracks and he again becomes emotionally involved, his old worries return to disturb him as before. His attitude of detachment fails to effect a permanent change in his consciousness because it is not based upon the truth that there is but one infinite self, which is the self of all. To know oneself honestly and understand one's environment requires a radical change in outlook. Mechanical coercion of the mind into temporary attitude is not sufficient, for the mind has tendency to revert to its age-old inclination in bracket habit patterns, sanskaric patterns. So its old age inclination and to free itself from any position into which it may have been forced. Unless the mind achieves intelligent discrimination, based on lasting values, it is inevitably harassed by self-created worries. Again and again, man must seek the oblivion of sleep as necessary respite from participation in things of little satisfaction.
I think let's stop here. Let's stop here and continue in the next week. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. And let's connect next week. I have a hard stop now. I got to rush. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Jai
That was
Baba,
great.
Jai Baba,
Thank you.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba,
Have a good week.
Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody have a great week. Yes, thank you.